to learn when really the game's good or bad. It's a go time! Super Mario 64! You know what's the best part about reviewing retro video games is? I get to go back to the games that mold me into the person that I am today. And this particular game is the main reason why I became a massive Mario fan.
You guys already know my thoughts on the 2D Mario games, so now it's time to take a look at the era of Mario that I grew up with, the 3D games.
So, are you guys ready for another trip to the Mushroom Kingdom? Well, I bet you are. It's the return of Mario.
I do have a huge retrospective with the Nintendo 64, being the very first game console from my childhood. However, as a kid, I didn't experience some of the bigger titles for the system like Ocarina of Time or Star Fox 64.
You see, between 1998 to 2001, my Nintendo 64 collection was piss poor. Times were a bit hard for me.
However, in some miracle, an old neighbor of mine, can't say his full name, Tim, gave me a bunch of Nintendo 64 games to help build up my collection like Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Space Station Silicon Valley, one of the oddballs, and Super Mario 64. Yes, not only I was introduced to some of the best games for the system, but one of the games Tim gave me to build up my collection was the fucking launch title. Mario was on a roll 3 consoles in a row. Okay, technically 2, because the original Super Mario Bros. Wasn't an NES launch title in Japan. It was only an American thing. With the 16-bit era of gaming coming to an end in the mid-90s, video games were making the transition from 2D to 3D. Back then, some games were 3D, like X on Game Boy or Alpha Wave on PC, but in the early days of 3D, the technology and limitations of gaming at the time made 3D super limited. Sony had recently released the PlayStation in December of 1994 in Japan and later in September of 1995 in North America. Meanwhile, Sega had released the newest system, the Sega Saturn, which is more of a 2D system than a 3D system, as evidenced by the 2D games on the system. So it had begun the era of early 3D gaming. Games like Bug for the Sega Saturn gave the illusion of 3D, though its 2.5D gameplay, but weren't fully 3D titles. Then there was Jumping Flash, a very early 3D platformer with tank controls and a first-person perspective. Super early 3D game, sure, but this was the era of 3D games that hadn't hit their stride yet. Nintendo, on the other hand, had a new system planned originally called the Ultra 64. Heck, even before the Nintendo 64 launched, they would experiment with 3D on the Super Nintendo via Mode 7, and even games that used the Super Effects chip like Star Fox and Stunt Race FX. The former of which gave the Nintendo 64, as well as Super Mario 64, early development to start off in 1993, and it was originally planned to be released in 1995, but had to be delayed to June of 1996. Here's the thing, Super Mario 64 had a very stressful development history, so much so that it caused 2 of the programmers of the game to quit after the game's release. Even Shigeru Miyamoto, who was the director of this game, hasn't directed any games since then. But after the strenuous development cycle, Super Mario 64 would launch on June of 1996 in Japan, and would launch on September 29th in North America the same year to a massive acclaim, becoming one of the most important and impactful games of all time. So without beating around the bush, let's play some Super Mario 64 and talk about why this game is so special. So the game opens up with a floating Mario head and a cheery Mario 64 title music. Sure, it's a remix of the overworld theme from Mario 1, but it still feels like a great transition. You can mess around with Mario's head all you want. It's fun for a while to make Mario look silly. This is also the first official Mario game in which Mario had a voice, provided by Charles Martinet. I said official because he also voiced Mario in Mario's Fundamentals, a PC game from 1995 that's super obscure except for people bringing it up on occasional trivia questions.
Mario, go fish!
Looks like it's time to go fishing again.
Mario doesn't say much in this game. It's basically a bunch of hi-yas and the occasional
Hello! Game over!
Ravioli.
How did Martinet got the most iconic role in his career?
He crashed the audition. It was the first and only time Martinet ever crashed an audition. I've heard a lot of stories about this. It might be sometime in 1990, the crew were packing up and then Martinet walked in and asked, excuse me, hey, can I read for this? And then the director, looking annoyed, he was like, alright, fine, this is real time. You're an Italian plumber from Brooklyn, you're gonna be talking to kids, etc, etc. So when Charles went into the booth, he was thinking, oh, what kind of voice will this character have? So he was thinking about one of the voices would be like,
hey, I'm a plumber from Brooklyn, so
But then he realized, no, that's too mean. So when the director yelled action, the voice that came out of Martin's mouth sporadically was the voice that we hear in the video games.
Hello, it's me, Mario. Okie dokie, let's make a pizza pie together. You go get some spaghetti, I'm gonna get some pasta. We're gonna put the pasta in the pizza and the pizza pasta. Then I'm gonna chase you with the pasta. And then we're gonna make a linguine and you're gonna chase me with the linguine.
He didn't even know what he was saying. And he just kept going and going until they ran out of tape. And then the director was like, okay, stop. We ran out of tape. So thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Let's party! Afterwards, Martinet got the part of Mario and would voice the character in many games up until his retirement in 2023, with his swan song being the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Wahoo! Mario, you were amazing!
Thanks, Dad. Now let's get on to the plot. We begin the game with Princess Toadstool, adapting her Japanese name Peach, gives our lovable plumber a letter about cake. Cake. This game was the introduction to Peach's castle, which becomes a staple of the franchise from this point. Mario arrives at the castle in a warp pipe, but as soon as he enters the castle, Mario discovered that Bowser has trapped Peach as well as the Toads using power stars inside of the castle walls. So it's up to Mario to collect the power stars and free Peach from the castle walls to save the day. Yeah, I know that Bowser kidnapping Peach is a tale as old as time, but I like the fact that there's a bit of variety in the way Bowser takes over. Much like in the next game we'll be taking a look at, Super Mario Sunshine. Oh, I got a lot to say about that one.
But people don't play Mario games for the story. They play for the gameplay.
Because this is a Mario game, of course, we have a game focused on platforming. Mario, of course, can run and jump, but now thanks to the new Z-Access, it adds more nuance to the gameplay as well as the way Mario controls. Mario, for the first time in a game ever, has 360 controls that age so gracefully since the game came out. All special thanks to the analog stick on the N64 controller. Yeah, I know, people nowadays hate the N64 controller, but it's not bad, and it was super revolutionary, especially for the time. Jumping works a little differently too. Rather than just one jump, Mario can perform a sequence of 3 jumps, where if you time it right, each following jump allows Mario to go higher. Mario can now crouch and jump slightly higher than a normal jump from his crouch position. He can also slide into enemies while crouched if you're running. Mario can even ground pound now, which is super useful against certain objects like bricks or even enemies. Oh, and there were some other moves that I forgot to mention, like that 1-2 punch combo that I first seen in Super Smash Bros. I don't know how to use for that. There was also the breakdance kick that definitely has no use, but the wall kick. By God, the wall kick. This was the game that introduced the wall kick, and it's very simple. You just bounce from one wall to the next to get to a higher ledge, and it's awesome. And it kind of shows that Mario has a lot of athleticism in this game. Also different now is health. In the older Mario games, Mario would be able to take a few hits based on the power-ups he had. Not in this game! Mario now has a health meter, which can be replenished by either collecting coins, breathing above a water surface, or finding a heart in the overworld. Sorry to say, the only thing that's slightly aged is the camera. Generally, the camera doesn't fight Mario all too much through the adventure, but this was a landmark title in gaming. So, of course, they were still figuring out how to make the camera work properly. Rather than a camera that lets you move the angle in a 360 way, the camera is in a set position, which, by using the C buttons on the controller, can be rotated. But it's not as neutral as other games now. But it's not enough of an issue to ruin the game. Everything in this game in terms of controls will go on to shape Mario controls in every mainline Mario game that would follow, even to this day. Rather than a linear game where you get to the end of the level, Super Mario 64 has more of an open-ended, non-linear approach where the goal is to collect stars to access new levels. The more stars you get, the more Peach's castle opens up for its secrets and new levels for Mario to get stars in. There are a total of 120 stars to collect, yet you only need 70 stars to gain access to the final battle with Bowser. And one thing that this game does super well is change up what you need to do in order to collect the stars in a given mission to keep the gameplay fresh. Whether it's collecting 8 red coins scattered throughout the level, having a race with Koopa the Quick, or simply getting to the top of the mountain. This game is always rewarding with the variety in the gameplay. There are a total of 15 courses and 6 total stars in each to collect, as well as stars in each of the courses you can get by collecting 100 coins. Yes, the 100 coin stars. You know, when I was a kid, I discovered this by accident. Here's what I know from memory. I found this out when I was 7. One day, I was bored out of my mind, and I jumped into Whomp's Fortress, and I asked myself, I wonder how many coins I could collect throughout the level. So that's what I did. I searched to find the yellow coins, pound every switch, defeat every enemy I see. But when I got the 100th coin and the star magically popped over my head, I was like, what the hell happened? But for the most part, these stars aren't as hard as some people would lead you to believe. Most of the courses have more than enough coins to make the stars easy and not strenuous to get. I'm that kind of gamer who has the patience for moments like this. Though there are a few annoying ones like TikTok Clock or Dire Dire Docks, but for the most part, aside from them appearing on the 100th coin, I had fun collecting all 15 of them. Also, since I have these courses memorized by heart, I know how to be careful when doing these 100 coin missions, even if I do some daredevilish moments. Not just in the courses, but also in the castle, there are secret stars. Some are held by toads, some are in secret courses across the castles which unlock power-ups permanently for the rest of the game, and some are missions like the secret slide which has 2 power stars. One run where you slide normally and collect the star, and one where you get to the end of the slide in under 21 seconds. Speaking of power-ups, rather than your classics like Fire Flowers, Tanuki Leaves, or even Cape Feathers, power-ups come in the form of caps Mario has to unlock in secret areas he has to find either in the castle, or in the case of Hazy Maze Cave, a secret entrance in the back of an underground area with the help of a Loch Ness monster named Dory. The 3 caps we have in this game are the Metal Cap, which turns Mario into metal for a short time, making him indestructible and sink like a dead weight in water. I can understand why Metal Mario became so iconic after this. The Vanish Cap lets Mario go through objects for a short time like a ghost. And finally, the Wing Cap, which, after doing a triple jump, lets Mario glide in the air for a short time. All these power-ups in this game only last a limited amount of time and are more situational than anything. Also in this game are boss battles, even though most of them are super easy to deal with. King Womp, the Wiggler during Tiny Huge Island, the bullies you fight in both Snowman's Land as well as Lethal Lava Land, and even King Bob-omb doesn't put up much of a fight. This is the first 3D Mario after all, but it's still great. We have bosses still in this game, and it's not just the Koopalings in 8 worlds. Even the first 2 times you fight Bowser in both Bowser in the Dark World and Bowser in the Fire Sea don't really give me any issues. Just throw Bowser into a bomb and boom! You got the key to unlock the basement and the top of Peach's castle. Now that we have all the stars, it's time to finish off this game by going to the top of the castle in the final level named Bowser in the Sky. This level is great and feels like a great finale to this game. It has the right amount of challenge and looks awesome, as if it feels like an endgame area. But oh boy, after all those years, they were really sneaky with the red coin mission. The last red coin was under the stairway the whole time? Yeah, years later, and I got dumbfounded for that. And even the final boss against Bowser works like the first 2 fights, except he dies after you throw him into a bomb a total of 3 times. Even cooler is the fact that the platform Mario and Bowser fight on eventually transforms to be the shape of a star. All this while epic music plays that contains layers of church organs. And you have one of the most memorable final bosses in the Mario series. So after defeating Bowser, Mario flies down to the entrance of the castle where Peach is saved, and Mario goes off to enjoy the cake that was baked by Peach. The ending credits theme makes me cry every time. Ending the game on a beautiful note with Mario and Peach waving goodbye to the player, followed by an end screen showing the cake. In case I didn't make it clear, this game is a must-play for anyone who likes video games, or even for people who don't care about gaming, because Super Mario 64 has a magic aura to it that few games have. The music in this game is classic Koji Kondo material, where he always makes such timeless music in any game he composes. Graphically, while this may be an earlier N64 game, it still has a charm to it with the low poly look it has, like a lot of games of that era. And most of all, this game is just plain fun to play. There are so many stories on the internet of people who grew up with this game and just had a ton of fun exploring the worlds because of how immersive it was. This isn't just a game. This is an experience handcrafted by a gaming company that will always bring people joy through its fun games. This is Super Mario 64, and it will always have a special place in our hearts for the joy it created back then, and the joy that it will continue to bring people in the future.
Hold on there, Thomas.
Oh, Liam.
I like what you're doing, but you're not exactly finished yet.
Don't sell yourself too short, Liam. I'm about to get to it. Let's sum up the following question.
Have you seen Luigi?
Yeah, it's a mainstream Mario game and Luigi isn't in it. I'm aware of those dumb internet rumors, but I didn't fall for them. It wasn't until 2004 that Super Mario 64 was remade as a launch title, but this time for the Nintendo DS. I remember getting the original DS model as a Christmas gift back in 2005. I got Mario Kart DS along with Ultimate Spider-Man to get me started with Nintendo's super successful handheld lineup of DS systems for the next decade. After beating the original game for the first time, a couple of years have passed and I first saw commercials of the DS, which also advertised Mario 64 DS. When I got my copy back in 2006, it made me curious. How would Nintendo manage to fit one of the best 3D games onto a portable system? Plot-wise, it's pretty much the same as the original, but there are some differences. This time, Mario, Luigi, and even Wario of all people were invited to Peach's castle. Sometime later, Lakitu informs Yoshi that the others haven't returned yet and must have been captured too. Yeah, you start off as Yoshi in this game, which, funny enough, you can find him on the castle roof after getting 100% completion in the original with a nice message as a congratulations to the players from the Mario and 64 staff for getting all the stars, as well as 99 lives as a reward with a sparkly triple jump. Still, it's Super Mario 64, and you begin with Yoshi. I guess with that, the game is saying, you can still flutter jump, you can turn enemies into eggs and toss at others. However, the main selling point of this game is the multiple characters you get to play as. I guess they were testing out some variety with this remake. Not a bad idea. Once you unlock Mario, Yoshi takes a back pedal for 95% of the game afterwards. Nevertheless, I do like the variety aspect of this game. Mario is the same as the original. Nothing to go into much detail here, yet he is the only one allowed to do wall jumps in this game. Not even Luigi can do that, which is weird. However, Luigi makes up for it with this high backflip spin. I like it. As for Wario, he can't jump as fast or jump as high as the others, but he makes it up with broad power. That's it. Wario is such a disappointment here compared to his main games.
You're coming back!
I know other reviewers may label him as the black brick bitch, but I don't want to be redundant. Mario still has access to the wing cap, but it's with a feather this time. The rest is replaced thanks to the power flower. When Mario gets it, he blows up like when he gets the pea balloon from Mario World. Pretty cool, but I wouldn't use it often. However, Luigi and Wario both respectively gain access to the vanish and metal powers when grabbing the flower. I was saddened when the cap gimmick was replaced, but I think it's because they did it to gain the ability to change between the characters on the fly. Like for example, when this gimmick was first introduced in Bob-on Battlefield, when Yoshi grabs on Mario Cap, he transforms into Mario. In all seriousness, hearing Mario's voice when he becomes Wario can be a little creepy. Lastly, the game added 30 more power stars, making it a total of 150 stars to collect. Some old missions have been replaced with some of the new ones, some like a race to get to the star, or collect 5 silver stars to summon one. It also adds some new bonus stages, which aren't too bad. Oh yeah, and you remember those 2 bunny chasing stars from the original? The DS version is littered with them. Instead of a star from them, you catch them to grab keys for Peach's special rec room. It's filled with minigames that takes advantage of the touchscreen. Most of these games are fun to play, except for the flower picking one. Seriously, what is with this shit? I bet kids from my generation got into gambling thanks to Luigi. Some of these games were so popular they were also included in New Super Mario Bros. I dig it. I would call this a good remake and would consider it the definitive way of playing Mario 64, but I do remember the one major problem with this one. The one main reason I refuse to go back to this game after all these years. That will be the main aspect of any game. The controls themselves. That fucking D-pad! Seriously, you are playing a fully 3D game with a D-pad. This ain't like the days of the OG PlayStation, mind you. The way this handles, I constantly overly rotate from where I want to go, causing me to fall off the ledges every time. Even if you use the circle pad on the 3DS family, or use the joystick from the Wii U Virtual Console, it does not fix the issue! You're still locked in moving 8 directions no matter how hard you try! Not to mention the fact it forces me to use my thumb to perform multiple button actions from running, jumping, and attacking. Yeah, a 3D Mario game with a run button. 3D Land and World don't count. I remember the days I dealt with carpal tunnel because of this. The developers try to compensate for that by using the touchscreen. So to help out with the lack of a joystick, the developers suggested you should use the touchscreen for smoother controls. I remember trying that for the first time back then, and I didn't like it, so I passed. Honestly, Nintendo really pushed this. They were so desert dry thirsty to show off the capabilities of the Nintendo DS, so the one game they ported that perfected 3D gaming at the time has been massacred. Sure, the added content in this game was a neat idea, but it's not enough to save the game. However, it's just my opinion. If you can find enjoyment with the DS version, I'm not holding it back for you all. This is why the original Mario 64 stands as a classic even nearly 30 years later. I don't consider it as the best Mario game of all time, there are more contenders for that title. But as for the best Nintendo 64 game, it's in my top 3. Definitely a classic I could recommend to you all.
That was it! Mario only had one huge adventure on the Nintendo 64. Afterwards, it would lead to a huge pile of spin-offs.
There were attempts to make a sequel, like Super Mario 128. After seeing the footage from Space World 2000, I can see why it didn't work at first and was later rumored to be a foundation for Pikmin, but it wasn't. There was also Super Mario 64 2, but that was cancelled too, thanks to the N64DD's failure.
It wasn't until the Nintendo GameCube came out, and nearly a year later in its lifespan, we finally got the next installment in the Mario lineup, Super Mario Sunshine. I absolutely despise how the internet treated this game. Well, that'll be safe for this summer video. Yeah, I think it might be appropriate since this might be a summer game. I think it's best to review this during the summertime. Well, until then, I am Thomas the Retro Nerd. Thank you all for watching. See you guys in the next review.
I'm Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario, saying thank you very much. Bye-bye.